You've got to take the patience. Scott-a-doodle-doo.
It was spring 2011. I was living in London for a year, and I had to get crappy jobs. And the first of one of my crappy jobs was as a telemarketer, and I was calling on the behalf of charities asking for donations. And it was a train wreck of a job, and like not just any kind of train wreck, but like imagine a train wreck, but you know, humans were the size of ants, but the train was still normal size. Like that was the scale and magnitude of how bad this train wreck of a job was. And you know, there was a lot of pressure. Like as any phone job like that, you had to hit certain numbers. They were very strict on break times, and you had to follow a script very closely. And if you ever wanted a supervisor all over you, one thing you do is just get off the script, and they would be all over you like you just requested some bad lap dance at the worst, most distracted moments. And I'm talking like a bad lap dance, like having a bad lap dance in a skanky old strip bar where, you know, strippers go to die. You know, and while you're trying to take the SATs and your wife is watching you. It was just terrible. And if you really wanted to drive a supervisor nuts, all you had to do was not ask for money 3 times. So no matter how badly you're getting rejected, you had to ask for money 3 times. So it could be this terrible. Like you could ask for a 20-pound monthly donation, and the person could be like, okay, I know where your office is. In fact, I've taken the liberty of wiring it with explosives that I will detonate with my remote detonator if you ask me for money one more time. Well, ma'am, I understand that 20 pounds a month may be a bit much, but perhaps you could consider a smaller amount, like 15 pounds a month. Boom. It was ridiculous. So that job was awful. I literally lasted there 2 weeks, and I just stopped showing up. Is how that worked out. And a month later, someone at the company emails me, and they're like, do you work here anymore? And I replied, no. And that was that. So I then decided to pick up another job at a pretty nice pub restaurant in a very nice part of London. And, you know, the clientele there was, you know, all had plenty of money. And I remember working there the first day and being shown around the place by another employee. And really the only thing of instruction that they told me was, don't touch George. And George was this very silent and I believe autistic gentleman from somewhere in Africa. And you know, sadly, I never saw anybody touch George. I don't know what would happen if you touched George. I don't know if you'd turn into a tree, or if, like, you know, you'd touch him and you'd turn into like a human candle with a wick in the middle that he would then light, and you'd burn down slowly as he was washing his dishes. Really don't know what happened. But one of the greatest things that happened when I was working there was a slow night, and I was clearing away a table. And next to me at another table was this very presentable and sound of mind looking woman with her boyfriend or husband. And I'm clearing away a barely eaten salad. And she goes, are you going to throw that away? And I'm totally surprised. And I look at her, I'm like, yes. And she goes, well, can I have it? And I go, no, I can't give you someone else's barely eaten food. And she goes, why? And I'm like, well, I mean, if you eat it and you get sick, something goes wrong, and the Spaniards Inn could get in trouble. And, you know, most people would stop there, and her boyfriend's getting embarrassed, and she goes, okay. And she starts to think, well, what if you left the salad there, you walk away, and you come back, and it's somehow gone? And I can't believe it. So now I just decide to mess with her, and I go, look, can't do that. That's not going to work because we have CCTV security cameras all over this place. And if I give you this salad, we could all go to prison, go to a Turkish prison for 20 years. And it kind of gets quiet and her face sort of gets straight and she looks at her man next to her and she goes, he's from Turkey. And then now there's tension, and I'm like, oh. And then he goes, that's crap. The prisons in Turkey aren't that bad. So I'm trying to recover now, and I go, well, look, you have to understand that my fear of Turkish prisons comes from the fact that when I was very young, my father made me watch Midnight Express. So I'm sure you can understand. So now their faces are kind of straight, and there's still that tension in the air, and they look, and then they start laughing very lightly. And I'm like, oh boy. And I kept my job, and everything was okay. And not that it was, the stakes of the situation were that big, but I really wanted to go back and just give George a high five for keeping my job. But then I didn't want to turn into a human candle.